morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you to the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, the Rhode Island State Council of Churches, and the First Unitarian Church for co-sponsoring this event with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. My name is Samantha Richards, for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, Rhode Island chapter. December 14th marks the one-year anniversary of the horrific shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. Today, the families and loved ones of the victims are foremost in our minds, and we send them our love and support on this very significant and difficult day. We're here to honor the victims of that terrible tragedy 1 year ago, and also to remember the 33 people killed every single day by gun violence in America. Most of them don't make the headlines, but they are grieved just as deeply by their friends, family members, and communities. We are here because we pledge to no longer remain silent about the toll that gun violence takes on our society. A year ago, mothers across America got a shattering wake-up call. As we watched the tragedy unfold in Newtown, we imagined our own children in those classrooms, and our hearts broke. While we knew we could never truly imagine what these families were going through, we knew we had to do something. As we sat in our kitchens, at our jobs, in our cars, and with our own children, each of us realized we could be silent no more. Our hearts broke, but our eyes opened. We awoke to a national nightmare. Our country, where every day nearly 8 children and teens are shot and killed. A country with the highest rate of gun violence of any developed country in the world. A country with a population so numb to the steady drumbeat of gun violence that many mass shootings aren't even mentioned in the national media. Over the past year, our devastation has turned into conviction. We've marched in Washington, D.C., we've met with our elected officials, we've educated ourselves and our communities, and effected real change in our states and hometowns. Some of our elected officials in Washington, D.C. may not be taking action, but we are. We stand here today more motivated than ever to protect our children, our families, and our communities from gun violence. Our country has been silent about gun violence for far too long. The time for silence is over. Please welcome Julia Wyman from the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence.
My name is Julia Wyman. I'm honored to be here on behalf of the newly established Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence. Moms Demand Action is one of our members here in Rhode Island, and we thank them for supporting and organizing this very important event. Our hearts have been passionate with resolve on behalf of our neighbors in Newtown, Connecticut, and all persons who've been impacted by the devastating effects of gun violence, including families of 12-year-old Inez Vargas and 23-year-old Carl Cunningham, whose young lives were taken here in Rhode Island this summer and last year. We too are no longer willing to remain silent. Our mission is to create unity and strength among the various organizations and individuals who seek to educate the public and pursue common sense changes to the gun laws in the state. It is a job of an enormous undertaking, with many parts to the problem and many aspects to the solution. But in the words of one of the greatest moral leaders of our time, the great Nelson Mandela said, "It always seems impossible until the job is done." The question is, how do we bring about change? We believe the answer lies in what the French philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville said about Americans when he traveled here in the 1830s. He said, "It is uniquely American to associate with the purpose of change, to fulfill the will of the people where our government and private sector fail to do so. Indeed, we are unique, and we are extremely privileged to have the tools to bring about such a change." On this day of reflection, we should ask ourselves, what kind of people are we? Are we the kind of people who run away from difficult challenges? Or are we people who insist that our children have a safe society in which to live? We cannot rationalize that gun violence is confined to places like Providence. We are all equally at threat. We are at threat in our homes, places of work, schools, universities, malls, movie theaters, and even military bases. Our Supreme Court has ruled that each of us have a Second Amendment right to bear arms, but it is not without each state's right and indeed obligation to balance that right against our prevailing right to be free of gun violence. It is imperative that we thwart efforts by special interest groups who have now turned their sights on ousting our elected officials from office for daring to enact common sense laws and regulations. They did it in Colorado, and they are attempting to do so today in our own Exeter, Rhode Island. It is incumbent upon us as voters to back our elected officials in situations like this. We must protect smart decision makers from such obviously one-sided tactics that distort the political process. Our coalition seeks to unify, solidify, and strengthen similarly motivated groups here within the state and to work together with sister coalitions in our neighboring states through association. We can achieve this real change through your membership and support. We invite all of you, organizations and individuals, to take a seat at our table and contribute toward a set of solutions. We hope that you will join us in order that we may speak with one powerful and resounding voice. Thank you. I would like to turn the podium over now to Central Falls Mayor James Diosa.
It's an honor to be speaking today on behalf of the mayors against the Legal Guns Coalition. But I also want to recognize my congressman, who was the one that created this coalition when he was mayor, David Cicilline. Thank you so much. It's under unfortunate circumstances that we are all gathered today, but I am happy that this is an event of no more silence. We need to continue speaking against gun violence. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank all members of various churches ringing bells today, including the City of Central Falls, and to everyone who made this event possible. And may we continue to honor those lost to gun violence. Thank you.
And I am the events lead for the Rhode Island chapter for Moms Demand Action. I will say Mothers Against Drunk Driving, which is sort of what we're formed after. When we started planning this event, it became really clear that we wanted to have no more silence and that bell ringing was an important component of the event. So we were really thrilled when the Gordon School Handbell Ensemble accepted our invitation to play today. And they not only accepted, but they accepted it with such heartfelt gratitude to be included today. So they're going to play this Little Light of Mine, and we actually encourage people to sing along. And then there will be church bells ringing for 1 minute here. I've heard we may not hear the church bells, so the handbell ensemble may ring their bells for 1 minute. And there will be bells ringing in communities throughout Rhode Island. We know of at least 15 communities where bells will be ringing, and they will also be ringing throughout the country. So please join me in welcoming the Gordon School Handbell Ensemble. by time, but we'll let them ring. And when we're having speakers, if we hear the bells, we can stop and raise those. Thank you.
I'm the Executive Minister of the Rhode Island State Council of Churches, and I'd just like to add my voice of appreciation to Colonel O'Donnell and Commissioner Perry who are here. This is something we all care about. Thank you so much for taking the time, Commissioner. I also want to say thank you to Reverend James Ford, who is the pastor of this church, and this congregation for allowing us to use this wonderful facility. Adjectives are woefully inadequate to describe the sorrow that emanates from Newtown, Connecticut this morning. Across America, indeed across the world, women and men and boys and girls are stopping to remember the tragic events of 1 year ago today. Shortly after this tragedy, voices rang out, calling for sensible control of gun legislation, control of guns, and legislation that would do that. And many of us thought that finally America had woken up to the realization that we live in an epidemic of gun violence. But within an amazingly short period of time, many of those voices became silent. In the mid-1960s, two rock and roll groups popularized the song entitled "Silence is Golden." Now, as the parent of four, I can tell you, there are times when silence is golden. In fact, when my kids were young, I used to try to get them to play my favorite travel game, who can be quietest the longest. It never worked. But there are times when silence is not the appropriate response. When guns take the lives of over 31,000 Americans in homicides, suicides, and unintentional shootings in a single year, the equivalent of more than 85 deaths in each day, more than 3 deaths in an hour, silence is not golden. When firearms are the third leading is not golden. When children in our large cities, on a per capita rate, die of gun violence close to 3 times more than the national average, silence is not golden. When gunmen opened fire on a graduation party in Providence, Rhode Island, and an innocent 12-year-old girl dies, silence is not golden. It is sin. There is a concept in the Hebrew prophets and the Christian Gospels that when an injustice goes unaddressed or a truth is ignored, the very stones will cry out. I keep this stone on my desk, and I look at it every day as a reminder of the faith imperative to speak out. This morning, we call on all Rhode Islanders to search their souls, to think about the overwhelming losses we experience in America every single hour because of gun violence, and then to speak out. Stop the silence. It's my honor to introduce one of our congressmen, David Cicilline, who is currently serving in his second term in the United States House of Representatives. A native Rhode Islander, Congressman Cicilline attended Brown University before earning his law degree from Georgetown University. After working as a public defender in D.C., he was elected to the Rhode Island House of Representatives, where he earned a reputation as a fierce champion of political reform and gun violence. For more than a decade, Congressman Cicilline has been working for legislation related to gun violence. I'm not going to take the time to read the litany of things that he has worked on, but let's just be very, very clear that we have a congressperson who has historically and consistently called for responsible gun legislation, not only here in Rhode Island, but in the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real honor to introduce to you Congressman David Cicilline.
Good morning. I want to first acknowledge Mayor Giosa and thank him for being here and his participation in Mayors Against Illegal Guns. Thank Colonel Donald and Commissioner Perry for being here. I know we also have Barrington Council President June Speakman, who is here, my state senator, Senator Golden, who is here, Tenny Gross, who of course is the leader of the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence, and many, many others in the community who have worked on this issue for a very long time. I want to thank the coalition, the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence, and of course the National Moms Demand Action for hosting this, along with the Rhode Island State Council of Churches. Thank you for hosting this important event, and more importantly, thank you for the important work you do. Today we remember the 20 children and the 6 teachers who were brutally killed during the massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And we honor their memory by renewing our call to end senseless gun violence across our nation. The pain and suffering to the families who lost loved ones cannot be adequately described in words. But this painful event also shook America and broke our hearts. And I'm proud today to stand with National Moms Demand Action, local leaders and victims of gun violence here in Rhode Island and all across the country to commemorate this terrible tragedy and renew our call to end gun violence everywhere. As a founding member of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, I have long supported efforts to stem the tide of gun violence. In Congress, I've been proud to continue this work as a member of the House Democratic Task Force on Gun Violence Prevention. I've authored legislation to close the fire sale loophole that allows the epidemic of gun violence to continue in our country, and co-sponsored bills to fix our broken background check system, ban assault weapons, close other loopholes, and expand mental health services. While it's important to offer moments of silence and reflection to remember all the victims of gun violence, we must also make our voices heard about our commitment to reduce gun violence to prevent future tragedies like Newtown. It's especially fitting that today we mark this terrible event for remembering victims of gun violence everywhere, not with a moment of silence, but with a bell toll. This repeated, striking sound should renew our call to continue speaking out with resolve that we will eradicate tragedies like Newtown and never remain silent about the urgency of action. Today we stand united as a community here in Providence as a reminder that we all share in this vital responsibility to protect the children, families, neighborhoods here in Rhode Island and all across our country. We stand to honor the acts of bravery and the lives of those taken, recommitting ourselves to the solemn duty of taking action to honor their memory. I thank all of you who have come here this morning to stand with our neighbors in Newtown, to call upon leaders across the country to continue efforts to end senseless gun violence and to create a safer place for us all. As Reverend Anderson said, we have been at this for a very long time. It's because we have failed so far. We have failed to enact common sense, responsible gun safety legislation here in Rhode Island and at the national level. And today we stand up to renew our commitment to do that. And I close by asking that we keep in our prayers the young victim yesterday of the most recent gun violence in Colorado who is in critical condition fighting for her life. May she be in all of our prayers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. I'd like to thank Sydney Monstrom-Koss, Nan Haru, Jennifer Boylan-Smith, along with the others from Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense, for all that they've done to put this beautiful event together. I'd also like to recognize our appreciation for many of you that attended. We're so happy with the turnout, and specifically Colonel Stephen O'Donnell, Commissioner Stephen Paré, Tenny Gross, Mayor Smiley. We are so thankful for you for coming today. We have a heartfelt thank you for our speakers. Congressman Cicilline, we really appreciate you being here and all that you've done for us in Washington. Reverend Anderson, your moving words meant a lot. Mayor Diosa, Julia Wyman, and the beautiful Florida School Handbell Ensemble. Thank you, everybody. In closing, as we gather to honor our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, fathers, friends, family members who've lost someone to gun violence every day, alongside the brave women and precious children lost 1 year ago today. Remember, we do it not with silence, but with sound.